Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me check my volume. I hope everyone is doing okay. I'm just getting back from, in fact, that's kind of what I'm talking about today. I went to a radio show today, and damn, I should have uploaded the picture first. I went to a radio show today, Sputnik. And the show is called By Any Means Necessary. Awesome show. I had an amazing time. It was different than Fault Lines. Fault Line was this kind of more morning Joe-ish, but anti-establishment show. Whereas this was more laid back. And I don't know if that's just because it was a Friday or what. But I thought I did an amazing show. My wife tuned in. And after the show, being in DC has, in DC, the law dealing with pot is a gray area, which means it's a gray area enough where you can kind of do legal stuff within the gray area that is not technically against the law. Now, so what I mean by this is, say for example, so they have clubs. They have actual clubs. Now, when I was in Amsterdam, I remember going to, I can't think of the name of the shop, but my wife and I think it was early in the morning, like 6 in the morning. Crowded. 6 a.m. And you go in, you buy what you want, and you can sit there and smoke it. You get edibles, or you can go about your way. They have a few of these shops in certain parts of Amsterdam. Now, for what I understand, the other crime went down at the point where pot was legalized, and I suspect part of it has to do with if you have access to this legal item, then your need for other stuff becomes less relevant. I say that to say I remember not having any fear or anything and how weird that felt. Like, to some degree, it's a certain latitude of freedom. And it's a certain latitude of freedom that you're cognitively aware of because you're cognitively aware that that's not necessarily something you have in your normal waking day life from where you're from in America. I went to this club, and after a bit of a kerfuffle trying to get into the club because they're still terrified that despite being legal, in the legality of a gray area, that they could be taken down, they go through weird methods in order to get access. That's it. I end up getting access. But before that, I talked to the guy who's, I guess you can say he's the bouncer. And as he's bouncing me out because I don't have the necessary paperwork, I'm engaging him and he's saying, yeah, look, it's a gray area. We're not sure, so we're very careful about the way we go about this. I understood, despite the annoyance. But eventually I get in. And one of the things, once I get into the place, it's jam-packed. 2 floors. Pot everywhere. Wall to wall. Edibles. Chemicals. Little vials of shit. Stuff that looks like dough. Stuff that you can eat and break. It's everywhere. Bong shots offered just to sign up on Instagram. And yes, I partook. It was the bong shot that did me in. And I remember for the first time, like, oh my God, I'm so stoned in this moment. I didn't buy her stuff because it was overpriced. But I said, oh my God. Now, that said, walking through the place, I was able to go upstairs and I ended up buying these little glycerin things. It's amazing. And I thought to myself, the people here aren't necessarily edgy. The music is blasting. And I'm like, this could be normal. Like normal, but not necessarily with people being edgy. And I know this is this way, in Colorado or maybe in California. But this is Virginia. This is bizarre. This is weird. And I look around and think, this could be the way things are. And I suspect that's the way things are going, pushing in the direction of legal. Whether Americans realize it or not, this weird thing of needing to get people to capitulate for things that is something not necessarily. Let me say it this way. Back during the 1930s ish, I don't remember exactly the time frame, but Prohibition, one of the results of Prohibition was this kind of thing in gang crime. I mean, ultimately, prohibiting alcohol didn't actually stop alcohol. You had people, skating across Canada once Canada froze over in order to get alcohol into the country. At that point, it became a lucrative business as a black market, as opposed to being something that's above board. I strongly suspect, and it's not even something I suspect, it's something that I know, that part of the drug war in Mexico is being fueled by the appetite for drugs in America. Not just that. Think of the number of people who we're putting in prison. Not just that. Think of the relationship between African Americans and cops that is somewhat overly emphasized or exacerbated just from the role that cops are playing in the society itself based on what the society is telling cops to do. There are several bad effects from this. That's all I'm saying. It's time to put this to rest. My eyes have seen it coming. My eyes have seen it coming. I am marking it down. That will be the normal way of operations. I don't know how long it would take, but that will be the normal operations. It is no way you're going to unravel what has been the process of getting pot to be legal. Those other people are on the wrong side of history. In fact is, all of the people who I would say are in prison at this point for pot are political prisoners. That's where I'm at. The whole drug war started with this idea from Nixon of locking up blacks and hippies. Now, that's not me saying it. That's part of the guy who was in the Nixon administration who came out saying in Harper's Magazine what the plan was. We needed to lock up blacks and hippies because we thought that these two groups were going to join together in a way and create a political bloc that was going to usurp or undermine the power base that we were trying to establish. Crafty politics, I mean, seeing as you destroyed those communities, and in seeing that you destroyed those communities, you also destroyed those ability for those people to even get their vote back. Touche. Fuck democracy. It needs to be undone. And this makes me dislike Obama that much more, because he hits both categories, blacks and a hippie, or at the very least during that time, and a pot smoker. Meaning he was literally the target of Nixon on both counts. I'm not saying Obama himself. I'm just making the point that the demographic type. And he did nothing for it. Granted, he turned a blind eye, but he did nothing. So I'm going to let it as me. All right, so I'm not going to keep this one long. I'm just going to make this point of, I had an awesome time tonight at that club. And that club could be status quo, meaning that could be the normal way of operations. And God, the amount of money that these guys make. Like, it's hard to get across the number of people who are there, jammed into that little building. Slightly anxiety-ridden, but ultimately having fun, enjoying the music for the DJ, slightly buzzed, a lot of them partially stoned, engaging in capitalistic commerce. Fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. Alright, I'm going to end this because on my way back, I have like 3 real stories that I want to do. This one was just, oh my God, it was awesome. It was awesome. And that could be our normal way of operations. Oh, by the way, also, I'm going to interview one of the women that was there. She has a business with, it's like pot feminism. I shit you not. It's a magazine. It's a pot feminism magazine. I was like, Jesus Christ, I need to interview you. You are amazing. And she said, okay, I'm willing to be interviewed by you. And I said, right, that's going to be fucking awesome. So if you're willing to be interviewed, I am going to be the one to do it. So I'm going to try to get her on the show. This is going to be a reality. Even in Richmond, Virginia, heart of the Confederacy, there was talk about, we have ABC stores of you essentially for alcohol, thinking of a plan to try to transition those to also accommodate marijuana. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. All right. I'm going to end this. I thought this was about God. Yeah, it's funny. I know, right? I know you didn't think this was about God. Look, the interpretation of what's God or what's holy or glorious for the most part is up for debate, just subjective. It's not necessarily an ironclad thing. I'm playing the words on this from the standpoint of the euphoric feeling that people have and comparing it to a religious experience. I don't know about you. My wife always say, you don't have any feelings. I do have feelings. I have plenty of feelings. When I'm doing videos and I'm pissed off, I'm very pissed off. But pot gets me in touch with my heart center. I think I've said that before. I've said that more than once. Where there's this better understanding and this startling view of myself from the outside perspective with a destruction of self in that view. If that makes sense. I know that's a little abstract. It's hard to explain. But it's like we walk around with these images of ourselves. We have a narrative in our head of who we are based on whatever you want to identify yourself with that the society gives you to identify yourself with. But those things aren't necessarily real. Those things are just narratives. I mean, ultimately, you can have 20 different stories of yourself. All of those stories to be true. It's just different perspective of you. My wife and I are going on a trip coming up. Now, there could be a narrative of, hey, that is awesome that he's going on that trip around the world, seeing as all of the medical stuff that he's had to deal with. You could have another one of, oh my God, he's a lunatic, he's going to kill himself, and he's going around the world, and maybe this is not the best thing. Somebody else can say, the world is a dangerous place, it's probably not the safest thing in the world for him to do, he's putting his wife at risk. So, which one is true? To some degree, all of them are. It's hard to get that across. It's like there could be a destruction of self at some point where you disidentify with yourself and you see yourself in terms that are not necessarily the way you typically see yourself. It's somewhat jarring at times, and even dispiriting. But it's an interesting phenomena in the way that it happens. It's difficult to pull it off. Outside of something to help you pull that off, at least for me. Yeah, I would imagine there's some Buddhist monks out there who are like, yeah, dude, you can kick rocks. We can do that shit without it. I'm not there. I'm not that good of a person to do that. So each additional perspective, is how do scientists and mathematicians say, is exponential. I love that. Just go for life experiences. I do. I do. But bungee jumping, skydiving, whitewater rafting, hitchhiking in the Middle East. Hitchhiking in the Middle East is fucking awesome. Terrifying, but awesome. Because I look back on those times and I think to myself, fuck, man, that was dangerous. Like, but when you're doing it, it seems perfectly logical when you're doing it. It's so bizarre. It's like you look online and you see, all right, you get on the bus and you go to Iliad. And once you get to Iliad, you're going to take another bus and it's going to take you to the border. And then you're going to walk across the border. And when you get across the border, there are going to be some Arab guys who's been standing out there. And no, this is after you get from Israel. But once you get across the border, it's like there's some Arab guys and they're going to be standing out there. And you tell those guys where you want to go. And those guys are going to take you where you want to go. Now, this was the only directions. And I remember reading this like, fuck, that's kind of scant. There's no bus stop. It's like, there's no guide that takes me from point A to point B that's a little bit more regulated than this. There's just going to be dudes standing out there. And yeah, there were just dudes standing out there. And I went to one dude and I said, dude, I need to go to Oman. And that dude took a piece of paper and he went and huddled with a bunch of other Arab dudes. And he comes back and he says, go with him. And I get into the car. The guy speaks not a lick of English. And he eventually flags down another car. And he says, hey, you go with him. And I said, all right, fuck it. I'm going with him. I mean, after all, I have no idea where I am. So ultimately, wherever I end up, is where I am. I'm lost either way. And this guy is either going to take me where I need to go, or I'm not going to be where I need to be. But the guy is cool as hell. And him and I talked the entire way from the border of Jordan to Amman, which is a long fucking ways away. I didn't realize it was that far away from the border. And you're essentially going to like a mountain, and you're looking over and you can see essentially the rest of Jordan. It was fucking amazing. Now, also, when I jumped into Jordan, during that time, I didn't necessarily have a huge political interest, so I didn't necessarily care about the political situations that I was jumping into, outside of, am I going to be killed or taken somewhere or burlap sacked? When I was in Nepal, they got weird, because we didn't necessarily know if the king was going to fight the countryside, because the country gave him an ultimatum and said, get the fuck out. And nobody knew if the king was going to get the fuck out. So everybody was kind of on eggshells. But in this case, the guy was cool as hell. He said, I love my king. And I'm thinking, king? And I've learned enough in the previous visit to Israel and Palestine to shut the fuck up when I'm thinking stuff. And I'm in the car with people, because they may take it in a different way than I intend. And there's a cultural differential that may be hard to get over, and I can't necessarily explain myself to people who don't speak English all that well. So, he said king. I didn't necessarily joke the fact that he said king. You know, it's like, is that guy appointed by God? He said, yes. God appointed that guy? Yeah, I wasn't going into that. He took me to Bojangles, and I know there's a black joke there. It's like, you went to Jordan. And you went to a chicken shop when you got to Jordan. Yes, I went to get chicken in Jordan. It's true, I did. And everybody there was kind of like, holy shit, this guy is speaking English. So that was always interesting. And he said, look, if you need to go anywhere, here's my number, here's my card. And extremely hospitable. Like ridiculously so. He puts me to my grandmother to some degree. So same thing at the hotel. When I got to the hotel, I remember the guy was like, it was a young guy, and at that point I had been traveling for literally like 20 hours, some ridiculous amount of time, and I'm just dead tired. It's 3 in the morning. I just want to hit the bed, and he's like, hey, would you like to come down for tea and cheese or something? Under normal circumstances, I would have said yes. Like, oh, dude, no, man. No, I'm sorry, dog. I just need sleep. I just need sleep. But no, it was so much fun. Bungie scares the shit out of me, though. Whiplash. It's weird. Your brain doesn't have time to process it. At least for me, my brain is like, you're going so fast that your brain is not, it's not there. It's not like it. I didn't have time to click it in. Eugene Kinsel's show. Might as well get stoned in a painful, deadly way for all the work you do, Patrick Sigwood. Oh, thank you, Patrick. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Morocco has great hash. So, Mayor's, I'm in Egypt. I'm in Cairo. And I'm walking down the street, and I have a tattoo on the back of my neck. It's a peace sign. And I have earrings. I'm the only one with earrings. Like, for the most part, it's from sample to men. And I think I'm the only one with tattoos at all, because I don't even think they were legal at the time. I could be wrong. And a guy walks up behind me. He said, what's that? What's that? What's that? And my hotel, it's funny. The guy says, don't talk to anybody. He said, don't talk to anybody. And I think within 20 minutes, me and this guy is like getting coffee at some coffee shop. And him and I are talking. He says, yeah. He says, I married a British woman. He doesn't speak English great, but you can understand what he's saying. He said he married a British woman, and she took him to Britain, and he was living with her. And he said she treated him so bad. Now, I think I know what he means. Brits have a way of sounding that comes across as dickish, even when they're not being dickish. But they do have a particular way of being dickish that's separate and distinct from the accent itself. And the dual effect of the two can be pretty brutal when you're listening. If you ever listen to British politics, listen to the shit they say to one another. It is scathing. It is totally scathing. Like, it's shit that wouldn't go. Donald Trump, the shit that he says is the shit that they say at prime minister questions in Britain just in a normal day. Like, I'm trying to get across how scathing it is that they say in the media and stuff in Britain. Listen to some of the talk shows when the guest calls into the talk shows. Oh, God. It's so brutal. And so I kind of get what he's saying, but he said, you know, she treated him bad. And he said he got to the point where I don't have to take this shit from you anymore. And he moved back to Egypt. And so and I'm making jokes about women's lib in Egypt and how women are getting equal rights. It's like, God damn it, fucking equal rights. I think he's joking when he's saying that, so don't misunderstand me. Him and I spent like 5 hours together. Bought some shitty art, which wasn't real at all, but whatever, it was worth it. It was awesome. It was awesome. Oh, but I know why I was saying this. At the end of the night, he says, look, he says, do you smoke hash? He says, do you smoke pot? And I was like, yes, I do. And I just came from Amsterdam, so I was, you know, I thought, leaving the Amsterdam in the airport, I was going to be attacked by a dog. That's how much pot I smoked while I was in Amsterdam. I was like, I need to get as much shit in my veins as I can possibly get, because when I leave, that's going to be the end of it. So he says, look, I can get you some rockin' hash. He says about this much, and he says $20, 20 American dollars. Now, the amount that he's talking about is probably going to be worth like a few $100s back in the States. So paying $20 for this is easily worth it. I mean, fuck, I blew $20 on some shitty art like yesterday. And, you know, what, $1 I think at the time was 5 Egyptian pounds. So a dollar did pretty good in the standpoint of Egyptian currency. I gave him the money. And then I got back to my hotel room and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, fuck this. You're never gonna see him again. I'm never gonna, because look, I've watched enough Locked Up Abroad to know that this is not the situation that I want to find myself in. And my wife always tells me you would never make it in prison, and if worse comes to worse, I'm probably gonna have to take that prison sentence. I think she vastly underestimates my reserves, but I do not want to be in an Egyptian prison. So that would fuck up my trip royally, and that is not a phone call I want to make back home to my mom. Crying on the phone in Egypt, trying to be strong, covering my head as I cry. Mama, help! Get the embassy! Get the embassy! Yeah, get the embassy. Did you ever wake up next morning naked with your pants over your head? No, not so much. Not so much. Lori Glennie, Locked Up Abroad is horrific. That show is terrifying. Look, for somebody who likes to travel and who's been solo traveling, oh God, it is terrifying. It is terrifying. It is utterly terrifying. Edward Klein, don't drop the soap. Don't drop the soap is an understatement. Fuck that, man. Don't do a lot of stuff. Did you just admit to stealing pot? No. I said, I never went back. I gave him $20, but I never went back for the pot. In fact, I didn't have a phone, so it was kind of hard to get in contact either way. But I was like, oh yeah, that's a horrible idea. Let's not do that. And I kept thinking of Locked Up Abroad. I kept thinking, oh my God, they're going to lock me up. Or somebody was going to get me in a room, scream bashish, and it's like, give me $1,000 and I'll let you out. Otherwise, you're going in one of the cells. I would rather not be in that situation. I'd rather not be in that situation. So, did he come back? No, he never came back. Dave Manani. I was terrified. There's so many episodes. I binge watched that show. I think I've watched every episode. I was Locked Up Abroad, and it's, how can I say it? It's one of those things of like, it's like the boogeyman. It's just like, think of something that you really enjoy doing, and then think of that thing in the most hellish possible terms. Like, think of hell on earth with Lucifer ripping the heads off babies and eating them, and, you know, taking a dump in the carcass, like just some really nasty stuff that's taking place. That's locked up abroad. That's what that is. When they're talking about like Turkish prisons or Egyptian prisons or like Cambodian prisons, like these weird far-flung places that have a dim view of human rights, putting you in the worst possible scenario in those societies that already have somewhat of a dim view of human rights. Oh God. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. All right, I'm going to end this because we're just fucking around at this point. Look, the main point of this video was with seeing what they were doing today from the standpoint of that club. And the music, the pot, all of the people there just cool as hell, just hanging out. That could be a reality. That could be reality. That could be an amazing thing. So, those prisoners got nothing on the United States. Dame Winani. I don't know, man. I give you the United States' anal rape down to a science. Fair enough. Our prisons, you know, if I could be wrong on this. Don't quote me, but I think I'm right. More rape happens to men as opposed to women. Now, people don't realize that. But the reason why people don't realize that is because people don't like to talk about that. Because that means that you have somewhat of a rape epidemic in your prisons. You've allowed a culture of rape, man rape, to take place in your prison system. I mean, Jesus Christ. You have a prison system where you have 5% of the world population and 25% of it in your prisons. You're literally having gulags at this point. At the same token where you're talking about liberty. Yeah. There's no such thing as liberty and justice in the context of society that have that many people in their prisons. Look, looking at its comparisons to the other nations of the world, that is immensely out of character for Western nations. It's a fucking embarrassment. And then, on top of that, anal rape. It's like, fuck. It's like, fucking hell. Learn socialist justice. Socialism now. I'm going to see this show now and become an insomniac like Jamal Thomas. Dude, that show will freak you out, but it's an amazing show. It's really good. It's really good. Oftentimes, it's narrated by the people who went through the experiences themselves. So they are telling you firsthand what was happening to them in the moment. They have actors playing and everything else, and it's like voiceover. But you get this brutal appraisal. Like, you have some cases where people have family members that are like spies, and those spies had contacts to get them out of the country. Oh, some of that shit is awesome. There's one case where a guy was like Mexico, and he ends up hooking up with this other cat, and it ends up having like a drug deal going bad because one of the guys ends up having a gun, and then a cop shows up. Oh, it's so awesome. It's so awesome. They end up dressing up like women, running down the street trying to get away from the cop. It's so good. It's so good. Robert Puque-Ray, ayahuasca ceremonies are legal and safe in some parts of the states. Arizona, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. That's something I've always wanted to do also. I think I'm too much of a punk for that. I think I'm too much of a punk. I don't want to see my dark parts. I don't want to. It's like your demons coming to roost. It's like, dude, just calm down. Just calm down. It's like, what if I don't want to be calm, man? What if I don't want to be calm? It's like, where is everybody telling me to calm down? I see those people freak out. Like, there's and when I mean freak out, I don't mean like punching somebody like they punched a shaman. I don't mean that. It's just ego death. You'll feel better after. Stephen Carl, I feel you, man. What if I'm okay with my ego being attacked for the moment? No, like, not freak out and punch the shaman, but they would sitting there like crying and losing their shit. And like, fundamentally, you're outside of the experience. So it's like, I give an example. It's you can almost say anything that you're outside the context, you can somewhat make fun of or ridicule. And even if you're not necessarily trying to make fun of it or ridicule it, it looks weird. And I understand weird is perspective. And so, people can be, it's kind of language police of, well, if you call it weird, it has a certain semantic to it, as opposed to just, it's different. I understand, fair enough. I'm being somewhat informal in the way I talk about it. But from my vantage point, outside of the context, sometimes it looks weird. So my mom was at church. She did something at her church. I don't remember what it was. And she invited us all to come because she had a part. And my wife and I go, and they strike up a song. And see, right off the bat, the singing to Jesus thing is weird to me. Only because to me, it's like you're singing to a fictional character. It's like singing to Santa Claus. Or singing to Thor. Like, it feels weird. It's like, calling the Queen of England the Queen of England. Well, do I believe she was appointed by God? No. Do I believe anybody is appointed by God by anything? No. So, pretending that this person is somehow appointed by God and endowed with some kind of magical trait. Oh, why am I pretending this? We're adults. Why is any adult at this point pretending this? I feel the same way about capitalists. So why are we pretending that they're needed for society to function? They're not. The only thing that's needed in this process is the worker. You don't need the capitalist in this case. But besides the point. But they're singing and they're so into it. Like they commit. And they go all in. Like it's a cognitive commitment where there's this gap of reality that they try to trespass, call it faith. And when they run to the edge of the cliff, they don't look down, they just go. They commit. And the thing in your brain that shifts, like when people are in this kind of meditative state, they're there. They're just in the practice of this, they're screaming Jesus. Now, I see her, she's in the corner, and she's like just kind of running like to and fro, and she ends up in the corner, and she's like just screaming Jesus at the top of her lungs. And the people in the audience are like clapping for her. And I'm like, oh my God, that woman needs help. Why is that woman doing that? Why is she doing that? And why don't anyone else here thinks that's odd? But again, I'm outside the experience. Like I'm not one of them. And because I'm not one of them, I'm sure there's a context for them. And within that context, that woman in the corner screaming a fictional character's name is perfectly normal. It's amazing. It's utterly and completely amazing. And yet, there it is. I respect the commitment. I mean, fuck, man. Just jump. Don't look down. Just go and make that leap. That leap of faith. You're outside the experience. So, But look, when I'm playing chess, the same thing. We were playing, when I was, I think we were playing Blitz. And with Blitz, especially tournament Blitz, they get so intense. Because it's like a 3-minute game and you're just going. My mom was like, why are you so intense when you're playing? I was like, I'm in a fucking war. Why do you think I'm intense? I'm in a war. I'm in a war. He's trying to take my head off. I'm trying to take his off. I have time for pleasantries. Be all hyped up and whatnot. She'd be like, calm down. To be fair, Methodists rarely make it to church during football season, let alone dance when they're there. Well, I'm talking Baptists. I'm talking about Southern Baptists at this point. So I feel you. Make it to football season. Oh, Eugene Kinsler, it's the power of music, buddy. Yes, it is. It's a trance. So I am not immune to it. When I was at the thing today, we were upstairs and I was setting up my app and the music was playing, and even when it's something I don't like the rap today. I think it's pointless. It has no message. It's just corporatized, and they call it art, and they hype and boost certain people up, and it's like okay, I guess you're telling me that this guy's supposed to be good. Fair enough. And it's playing, and it's like this trance music, and you realize at a certain point you're in somewhat of a trance. Like you're it's weird. I started processing what they're saying, not necessarily the beat. I started listening. I'm thinking of it two ways. I am feeling it, and I am hearing it, like intellectually hearing it. And intellectually, I'm thinking, this is the stupidest shit. Like, this makes no sense. And it's just the most basic stuff. Like, I got up in the morning, and I fixed some bread. I got up in the morning, and I fixed some bread. I got up in the morning, and I fixed some bread. And I told that bitch to go get me some head or something like that. And they repeat it over and over and over again. And then the people who are there are kind of like also repeating it. And it's like, this is so stupid. How does this become? Yeah, it's the power of music. It's the power of music. Well, and it's not just the music. It's also power of music laced with an idea, if that makes sense. Like, the idea that they've all agreed upon, these themes, these uber themes. Like, what does it mean to be free? Take religion out of it. Whether you realize it or not, whether a religious group, a political group, those things are almost the same. Both of those things to some degree are cults. Is there any material difference between Hamas and the regular political groups? Now, I know their methods are different, meaning one is violent and the other one is not so much. It's somewhat feckless. But I'm trying to make the organization with a political ideology. That's all it is. It's a party. Violent party, but a party nonetheless. And whether you are a Christian or whether you are a Democrat, I hardly see the difference in those things, with the exception that the Democrat may be a secular party and the Christian not so much. The Christian believes in this kind of fictional God. But Democrats are capitalists, and capitalists believe to some degree in this maximization of profit for a particular community and society, at the very least work at the behest of the top 1%. And the belief in this kind of capitalistic thing, even at the expense of the planet, to some degree, is a religious belief. I mean, after all, these guys, to give you my point, Hillary Clinton was pushing fracking across the planet. At this point, it's well understood that fracking is worse than the other methods because of the methane that's released in the atmosphere. This in no way stemmed the tide. There's no way stopped her from doing it. She wouldn't categorically get rid of fracking. And there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. I'm trying to make this point that this pursuit of profit, even when your ecosystem is falling apart around you, that's not conjecture. That's materially real. Scientists will back me up on that. It is the mainstream scientific consensus that our ecosystem is falling apart around us. And these guys are still trying to maximize profit, or putting profit at the highest, deification of profit. I guess you could say that one is this kind of belief in an ethereal God, and the other one is the belief in this kind of ethereal principle. But both are willing to achieve their ends at the expense of real things. So, let's see. Anthony Allen, thank you, man. Wicked Guru, shamanic drumming is a thing. Yes, it is. Try smoking straight DMT if you don't want the long ayahuasca trip lasting 15 minutes or so. Much love. Thank you, Wicked Guru. I appreciate it, man. You know, it's wild. I tried, the ayahuasca thing. It lasts so long. I think that's the thing that freaks me out. I don't like long experiences. I just like experiences, if that makes sense. I want to have the capacity to say no or to back out of the experience if it gets to be ridiculous. When I was doing OBE stuff, it was the same way. I would inch my way to the OBE. I would get to the point of because look, it's if you have an experience where you are asleep and you transition into, let's say, like a lucid dream. And let's say the lucid dream, for the most part, is straddling this line between, okay, Am I in my body? Am I on my body? Or is this just a lucid dream state? Well, in those particular situations, there's always this thing in your head of, well, you lost consciousness between the intersection between the beginning and the ending of your waking conscious state and whatever the state is you are in now. You're getting a different data stream. You have a body somewhere, but you're getting a different data stream from what you normally get. But there was a break in consciousness, which means you can kind of say, that could have been a dream. I mean, granted, it would have been a weird dream, but it could have been a dream nonetheless. So the goal for me was, the only way you know that there's some legitimacy to it is if you do it, and the only way for you to actually do it right is if you do it without a break in consciousness, meaning you need to have a waking state OBE. Now, the catch to this is terrifying, at least it was to me, and maybe I'm somewhat of a punk in this. But in all of the other experiences, it was the same way. For whatever reason, it's almost like the human being, and maybe I'm just projecting here, has this thing where when the experience is unfamiliar, there's a certain amount of fear associated with it. Especially in stuff like this, because it gets around this idea of death and the physical form and what it means, and you know, is it a data stream? Is it more? Is all there is? All these weird, interesting questions. And the experience itself is strange. I think I've said this before. It's almost like when your body goes to sleep and you remain conscious, you start to lose track of your physical senses, but you start to gain additional senses. So it's like, for me, after all of the oddities, like this kind of feeling like your heart is going to beat out of your chest, feeling like you're plugged into an electrical outlet, just like vacuum cleaners, like near your ears. Like it's an extremely bizarre experience. And the first few times I would punk out and be like, all right, fuck this, I'm done. It's like, yeah. And I would break the state. Like, now the thing is, you could always break the state, so it's not like one of those things where you're stuck. But in the transition part, where there wasn't a full separation, where I was still technically associated with the body, you could always break the state. So I would always get fearful at a certain point and break the state. I was like inching my way to the experience until I got to the point and said, fuck this. You're gonna go through with it, buddy. You're gonna stop messing around. And letting it happen. And I remember I was sitting there, eyes closed, and yet I'm staring at the ceiling, and I'm like, wait a minute. My eyes are closed. How the hell am I staring at the ceiling? In which case I started telling myself, all right, don't think about anything weird. Now, of course, the moment that you say don't think about anything weird, you're going to start thinking about weird shit. Yeah. And at that point, I woke myself back up. I started thinking of weird shit. Like, I was like, all right, don't think of a monster. And then it started getting specific. Don't think of an alien sitting over your bed staring at you. And I had this image in my head of something just kind of sticking his head over, in which case I was going to lose it. It was going to be massively undignified. So I broke myself out of it. I was like, all right, I'm done. Sounds scary. No, it's not scary. Believe it or not, a lot of the stuff that's scary is it's like your anxiety is there, but the experience itself is less so. Like skydiving. The scariest part of skydiving was everything up before the skydive. The moment that you're falling out the plane, gravity is essentially taking control, and within a few seconds, your body adjusts. But the anxiety for the hour before you actually getting on that goddamn plane is treacherous. It is completely treacherous. The OBE stuff, it's only scary because it's unfamiliar. The unfamiliarity makes it a little trippy. Now, if you hear something calling you, there's probably nothing calling you. One point. And sometimes, depending on the person, the body would start doing things or projecting certain things into the experience for various reasons that are part of the person's psyche that is fucking with them for the point of that particular experience. So, say for example, if the person, say the person is terrified of death, and the person to some degree associates what's taking place with death. Well, the person may see certain things that are screwing with him in order to prevent him from going through the experience, whether that's hearing auditory hallucinations or whether that's seeing things that are in the room, trying to stop him from doing it. Those things are manifestations of himself. That's all there is. In the OBE state, yes, you can interact with things that are not of self, but you also can manifest things that are just you and that fuck with you. So, Anthony Allen, this is for past shows. I enjoy your content. Thanks for all you do for progressives. Thank you, Anthony Allen. I appreciate it, man. This is for past shows. It was like, not this show, because this show is off the goddamn rails. This show is off the rails, Anthony. This show is off the rails. Darius Adams, skydiving is very freeing experience. If that makes sense, I definitely recommend it. It really is. I mean, it's funny. It's free and it's not free at the same time. Like, you're jumping out of an airplane and you're falling at 9.8 meters per second squared. Yes, you're free falling. But what can you do? I guess you can start moving around if you have more skills, like with the thing. So you're right. Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. Jamal, nowhere are the Bernie BS sniffeth. Where are on the Bernie BS? Joe, you must have seen it, Jamal. I missed that one. Oh God. Kids were fighting. In Sphere, they manifested the real things. Well, here's the thing. I mean, Aries moon, most resilient moon, in my honest opinion. It's a hard dog to keep on the porch. Like, it is ill-suited for this current. Yes. Like, I don't say yes in self-serving, but I'm saying yes from, I've had a difficult life, man. Like, and there's certain behaviors. I think I've, certain quirks that I guess you can say, developed along the way. And one of those things is kind of want for a certain amount of freedom. Like, I think sometimes this comes up with people, this kind of libertarian mindset of, I want to be left to my own devices. Well, it's true. I want to be left to my own devices. And in being left to my own devices, I don't necessarily mean, left destitute in the street without food and all this other stuff. No, I mean a society where we work towards each other's ends. Where we have a floor in that particular society. And within the context of us or people having a base level of interacting and living, you don't need to go beat over the head from cradle to the grave with people ripping money out of your pocket. Beyond that particular point, leave people to their devices. I suspect you would get a much better and friendlier world if people are not necessarily fighting and biting. It's like, I got mine, fuck you, get away, I need to this for my kids. It's like a rat with 30 rats with a tiny piece of cheese, and all of them are trying to get theirs. The moon, saying that the moon is resilient. Yeah, there are times. I remember I was and look, I don't know if this is anything astrological. I know what you mean though. I know the reference. I know what you mean from the standpoint of let's say perspective or personality trait or personality quirk. However people want to understand it. It's the idea. I remember being in the hospital, and it was a weird night. It was a weird night on a few counts. There was a thunderstorm or a hurricane that was hitting Richmond, and I ended up in the hospital. I didn't want to be in a hospital. I never liked to be in a hospital. I guess nobody likes to be in a hospital. And I was having stomach pain, and I kept pushing this thing of like, fuck, I don't want to go to the hospital. And there's other stuff to that, but I'm in the hospital, and the lights essentially at some point go off. But before the lights go off, I'm sitting in the room, and I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm like, holy shit, I'm seeing something moving around the room. And I asked my mom, I said, look, I'm not losing it, am I? Do you see that? And there's this energy pattern that's kind of floating about the room. And she says, yes, I see that. Now, I don't think she's fucking with me, just to say that. But it was weird. It was bizarre. It was like this kind of energy pattern. Now, as the night go on, I get progressively worse. And I am throwing up blood every 30 minutes. Like literally, like on clockwork. And the hospital gets hit with essentially a storm. The lights go out. The toilets no longer flush. The water in the hospital, essentially, there's no water. And they start pumping water or bringing water from other state. And some of the people, good capitalists, decided to raise the price of water because they figured they can essentially, you have people who in shit and piss and they need water. So what do you do if you're a good capitalist? You raise the price of water. You can make a ton of money off of the misery of others. It's good capitalism. But the hospital, this takes place all night. From like 6 o'clock to 6 the next morning, every 30 to 45 minutes, I'm throwing up blood. And I am having these weird dreams. Like, it's getting to the point where I'm having these weird dreams that I'm in a truck. And there's water in the truck. And I am so thirsty because I haven't had anything to drink, and anything that I bring down, I bring back up. And as I'm in the back of the truck, I see the water. I could reach for the water, but the moment I reach for the water, the truck shifts and the water gets shuffled somewhere else, in which case every time I go, the truck shifts. And I find myself never able to actually get my hands on water. Then I wake up and I'm, again, for the most part, that dream was essentially an allegory of what was taking place. Even if you take water in, you can't keep it up. So doctors eventually come in. You're bleeding. We need to take you down to surgery. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the unless these memories are blurring, but that was a horrific fucking day. That night was horrific. I remember parts during that night at points, and I saying to myself, "Oh fuck, just let me die, just let me die." Like, this is misery, because the nurse would come in and they would give my mom a bucket, and they would just kind of put paper on top of the previous 30 minutes. I mean, after all, the toilet didn't work. Nothing worked. And so the best thing that the nurse could do was say, here, tissues. I just remember saying, like, fuck, man. But here's the catch. Every so often, it will be a few seconds after it saying, no. Now, I don't think that was fear, per se. That was just like, no, suck it up. Stop being a punk. Suck it up. Project yourself to the next minute and keep moving. I don't know if that's a property. I doubt that that's not a property of, I don't know if that's a property of astrology. I don't know how the reality is made up. But, and from the standpoint of the perspective that you're talking about, I do understand it. It can be resilient. It can be resilient. Dreams are such a trip. The subconscious takes in so much amounts of information and shells out the images and conscious instead of decide. Yeah, like your brain, there's so much shit that your brain takes in that it just discards. Like your reality is so much wider. And believe it or not, you have access to a lot of that shit. It just gets pushed to the side. You focus on and you narrow down your reality to the things that you need your reality to be. If you don't need it to be this wide, it doesn't have to need to be that wide. By the same token, there's this other thing that people sometimes pretend for the moment that there was no right or wrong, and that you can do whatever you want, providing you're willing to deal with the consequences of it. And for you, the consequences wasn't put in moralistic terms. So, if you say to yourself, I can commit an atrocity, because I know in 20, 30 years after this atrocity is committed, I can make peace later on with the spoils of the atrocity. Now, from the standpoint of moralistic terms, that's completely wrong. That's horrific. You're talking about committing an atrocity with this idea that later on the side of the weaker side is not going to have any chance or any choice but to agree to some settlement after you committed a severe atrocity. So pretend for the moment Israel makes a deal. They've called themselves a Jewish state. They've conquered a particular territory. And they've essentially taken that particular land. Say later on they make a deal. But say for the moment all of this was somewhat estimated and thought of in advance to some degree. Not necessarily to the totality of it is now. I'm trying to use this more so as an example of, or hey, African Americans. Let's use that. Let's not use Israel. America, capitalistic system, free labor. That's the joy of all capitalists. And uses that to essentially build an empire while letting the people themselves kick rocks. When I say that, I find that to be amazing. The reparations thing, I never make that argument because I don't necessarily think that argument is going to go anywhere. I don't think whites regard their history honestly. You can't even have a conversation about it if they don't regard their history honestly. It's not something I like to talk about. They honor the founding of the country as being this glorious moment, but it's like it's a glorious moment where you murdered, committed genocide on a remarkable fucking scale. I mean, shit. How many people did Stalin kill? How many people did we kill when we committed a genocide? That blows me away that that's okay. And that nobody looks at that with a certain amount of sadness and sorrow at what was taking place in regards to creating the nation. Nobody is saying that the Native Americans should come back and murder all of the Americans, but fucking hell. Fucking hell. But whatever. After that, you get the African Americans. Now, say for the moment that at the end of that, you say, look, we did a bad thing, and we're going to pay you off for that bad thing. Now, the catch to this is the nation has been built. The labor has been used. There's no need for it at this point, especially if you're talking about automation and everything else. The only thing you do is settle up, and you say, hey, the world is great. But you've just benefited magnificently off of this particular deal of committing an atrocity. What happens when you don't necessarily have the moralistic terms of the world? You just have this idea of cause and effect. What do I need to do to get what I want, provided the consequences don't necessarily topple my particular reign or my particular activities? Meaning, I need to coat myself in some moralistic terms. So I need to coat myself in terms that not necessarily govern nakedly. But that being said, within the context of what I can get away with, I'm going to try to get away with. Morality has nothing to do with it. I suspect that politics is more to do with that, if I'm being honest. They can't show you that face. I mean, they can never say that. That's not something that they're going to say openly and honestly. But I strongly suspect that it has more to do with that. I say that the world that we have, we wouldn't have this world if it wasn't that way. Wouldn't have that world. Fucked up political theater. The hazard of marginalizing whites, Asians, men in general is that they do have somewhere else to go. Bob, yes. And you know what's wild about that, Bob? Part of my dislike for the identity politics, and you know what? It's not even identity politics per se. You know what it is? It's the disregard for the economic sphere of politics. Because if you're not talking about the economic sphere, it means you're not talking about it for reasons. The question becomes, what are those reasons? What are those reasons? When you talk to the population is all in. What are the reasons to which you're not having the conversations that need to be had? Which, I gotta be honest, it breeds a certain amount of distrust. And it also makes it look as if you're hugging a particular demographic. I'm hugging darkies. That's what it makes it look like. You know, every candidate comes up and grabs the first darkie that they find and says, oh, I love you! I love you! You're the greatest thing on the planet! Now, the whites look at this and are like, what the fuck? Alright. Now, to be honest, the people who are in the Democratic Party look at whites that say that and say, why are you saying that? Why do you have an issue with a political party that hugs identity in this way and diversity in this way? Fair enough. Fair enough. But by the same token, is it really for the individual to judge why the person has a particular disposition or opinion on that particular party? Like, this stuff gets weird. I look at this stuff as, how are people raised and reared culturally? And if the society was a little bit different, would that person be that way? Meaning, what are the drivers that make that guy that guy? And from the standpoint of the left, I suspect that the way to deal with that guy is to break the drivers that create that guy. I suspect those are economic drivers. And the reason I say that is, and maybe not, I could be wrong. There's a percentage that I don't expect to get. So don't misunderstand me. I don't consider that to be this kind of this wide swath. But what I do know is there is a percentage that went to Obama hoping for change. They're not racist. And they're not sexist. They're not racist or sexist. Eugene Kinsella show. Wish I could do more, but I'm a good capitalist. Good capitalist. Oh, Eugene, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I guess I can call this a user-driven show. Wesley Walker. Oh, jeez. Yo. What's going on, Wes? What's going on? By the way, Jamal called Brits dickish earlier. There's kind of ish. I mean, come on. Be honest. Look, the voice sounds so fucking cool. Like, and I don't mean that, so when I say dickish, I don't mean it as a negative way, even though I know that's a negative term. There's that accent, to me, is probably the most badass accent of all the accents. I know some people say French. I like Brits. There's a sound to it. And I'm just saying, that sound can come across as a dickish when the person is being... They have an awesome way of cutting people down. Let's say it that way. They have an awesome way of cutting people down. Auditory smug. That's it. Stephen Carl. Yeah. It's a smug. That's the word. Smugness. Auditory smugness. I love that. Auditory smugness. Love you guys. Somehow we'll get through this. Kinky. No, I love Brits. That's why I cover British politics. I'm just saying when what's his name? Sargon was talking about Democratic Socialists of America. And smug was just dripping off of every word. And then it was over top because of the British accent. And it's like, oh, dude, I'm not holding the accent against you, but goddamn, you're being smug, or, over top of it. It's like you don't need to be smug and the accent. The accent by itself is enough. It's too much. It's like going full retarded, like when they say in the movies, like you never go full retarded. It's so intense. It's so intense. I give you another example. I was in Nepal. I was in Nepal. I think it was Nepal. Was it Nepal or India or Cairo? No, it was Luxor. It was Egypt. Luxor, Egypt. And I'm in a hotel, and I'm talking to the manager of the hotel, and there's a British woman that comes downstairs, an older woman. And her and I are talking, and she's telling me about a hotel. Restaurant. And she's like, look, this place is really good. We were there yesterday. It's at the mall. It's on this 3rd floor. You'll love it. Go enjoy it. And I leave, and I go upstairs for something, and I come back downstairs, and I'm sitting in a different location. And the woman, she's looking for me. And she goes to the hotel guy. The guy doesn't speak a lick of English. And she's like, have you seen the other fella? The black fella? And she's like, the black fella. She's like screaming, the black fella. Have you seen the black fella? The big black fella. And she's just like, it is the funniest shit you ever hear, because it's like her solution to the guy not understanding was to speak louder, as if increasing the volume of her voice was somehow going to transverse the language barrier. It was amazing. And so I meet her, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Because, saying the black fella, it was indecent of her, I suppose. I was like, no, it's okay. I love the accent, man. So don't misunderstand me. But smugness, you guys got that shit down to a science. It's down to a science. Kinky, yeah, Trump is exposing the deep state big time. Finally, funny how the deep state is insisting on certain assignments, like CIA Pompeo ensuring that Trump stays in line. So obvious now. you guys, the deep state Trump, I don't think Trump is battling anybody. I think Trump is out for Trump. And I got to be honest with you. I think this is a little bit more bare bones than this. Donald Trump is a reality show host. There are people who are behind Donald Trump that are explaining the world to Donald Trump. Donald Trump probably doesn't understand that world. He understands that world maybe as a, like something on the side of a Cracker Jack box. It's somewhat of a snapshot. So there may be certain things that he say, holy shit, I'm more interested in this versus this one. But I suspect that Donald Trump is following, I guess, even almost a Steve Bannon-like plan. That's what I think. And I don't necessarily think that plan is Trump's. Like, I don't understand how much of this he would understand. I guess that's where I'm at. And so I suspect that he's leaning on his staff and the people that are around him, especially people who are probably more military types or people who are more Bannon types who may look at China as being a bigger threat than Russia. The Democrats are screaming about Russia here, and it's possible that the reason why he's getting cozy to Russia is because he thinks China's a threat. I don't know. I think mainstream media is dropping the ball on this magnificently. They've accepted, to some degree, that the world is a threat and that Donald Trump is the end of the world. He is the apocalypse. He's an orange apocalypse, and he is going to wipe out everything from the face of the earth. There are going to be trees that are going to be blown out of the ground, and bricks and buildings are going to just fall as he crumble in tweets. I don't think that's true. I'm sorry, I don't. And the reason why I say I don't think that's true is because if Donald Trump was the tyrant that they say that Donald Trump was, this authoritarian who wields with an iron fist and then he tells everybody what to do and you're fired, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Then when he came back and this supposedly big man was sitting there walking back his statements, reading his lines like he was a hostage. Did you see that? Did you see that? Who's the boss now, Donald Trump? You're sitting there reading your lines like you're a hostage. And now they're putting out stuff talking about the man's cheating on his wife. I read that and I thought, I don't care. Donald Trump fucked a porn star. Good for Donald Trump. Gold star. Gold star. He's a lucky guy, I suppose, if you're into those things. And now they're saying he cheated on somebody else. So what? That's an issue for his wife. And I suspect she probably already knew. All of this is just to put a knife in him. And it's putting a knife in him in these weird, ridiculous ways that have nothing at all to do about policy. It's fucking theater. It's all theater. None of this shit is real. And the media gives you the stupidest fucking analysis. You can't even call it analysis. It's the dumbing down of the American public from the things that really matter. What if? When I looked at all of this attention that they gave Donald Trump walked backwards. The guy who they said was a goddamn apocalypse, annihilation, Thanos, with the political glove, whatever that means. Reading his lines like a broken hostage. The President of the United States. You know what it put me in mind of? Obama showing his birth certificate. That was Donald Trump showing his birth certificate. That's exactly what that was. So, what if the media screamed like that about somebody living on the street? It gets across this thing that if they really cared about poverty, there would be no poverty. The mainstream media, when they want to, they can scream at the top of their lungs. Politicians will scream at the top of their lungs. This has nothing to do with the public being interested. This has everything to do with them being hysterical. There's a difference in those things. The fact that they can be hysterical about this, they can be hysterical about somebody sleeping on the street, but they don't. They don't. It's fucking aggravating. Bernie is peddling Russiagate, and I'm sad about it. Oh God, Eugene Kinsella show. I saw. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch it. I think I tried to. I think I clicked, but it didn't inhale. I couldn't watch it. I knew what was going to come out. I couldn't watch it. And then there was this other clip of him in Congress, like in the well of Congress, trying to pass some bill to prevent Russia from attacking America again. Oh, God. It hurts. It really hurts. Krillin 87876. In my honest opinion, I think Trump is cozying up to Russia to help Bibi. They want Iran shields out of the backyard and Russia have influence over Iran. I see. So I remember Bibi Netanyahu was making several trips to Russia. I remember Vladimir Putin had told Bibi Netanyahu, at least according to reporting, it wasn't this enthusiastic support of Israel, even though it wasn't necessarily against Israel's interests, if that makes sense. Russia is a little weird from the standpoint of I don't fully understand the relationship between Russia and Israel in this case, especially within the context of Iran. So I don't know. Something is taking place. I know the United States was trying to squeeze Iran, and my thought was because Russia is close to Iran, maybe that's why Donald Trump is getting closey to Russia with the idea of saying, look, I want to knock them out of, I want to take their heads off. And maybe you can't necessarily do that without Russia's okay. That was my thought. I thought this was horrible for Iran. I hope that's not true. And not just hope that's not true, I would hope that Russia would not allow that. If that's what's taking place. Meaning, if this is one of those things of, we need your okay before we do this, I would hope they not get that okay. Whatever, that attractive woman who was doing that hula dance, she was popping and locking into some kind of Arab music, some Arab rap. She was gorgeous. And she could dance her ass off. They arrested her. It's fucking stupid. It's just as stupid as them arresting stoners here. It's obscene. Now, I don't like the fact that they did that. It's a repressive, theocratic government. To some degree, that theocratic government is there because of us. But either way, they're there nonetheless. I don't like it. But me seeing a just cause is a little bit different than some kind of just repercussions of us imposing something on them. Those bombs are going to fall not just on the bad guys, but also on that girl who's popping and locking, who's just a human being who wants to have a life. So whatever hardship you're trying to put on that country, you're putting it on all of them. Now, it's one thing if they themselves make a decision to say, look, we're changing the order of things, and they push, they resist, and they make those changes. It's another thing when we ourselves are adding to that, and we're trying to impose some kind of order on them. Not to mention the terrorist cult that they've been cozying up with, that Met group. Yeah, this is... I would hope... I would hope that Donald Trump has murders on his conscience. He's maximized the things more than Obama from the standpoint of drones. But I would hope he wouldn't destroy a country like Bush. That's what I would hope. So, we'll see if I'm wrong, but I would hope it. Order of chaos. You cannot change the order of things. The order is chaos. I don't agree, man. I understand that everything for the most part goes into this kind of entropy, drifts into disorder. But there is a difference. You have an animating force. If you were talking about items in a vacuum, granted. If you were talking about rocks in the void, granted. But those rocks are not conscious energy. And at the end of the day, you have conscious intent and conscious will. It doesn't have to be chaos. That's my point. You have conscious intention. Uh-oh. What was released? 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 Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Franco. Actually, Franco, tell me. Franco, tell me. What is it? What is it? What is it? I'm checking it out. I'm checking it out now. Checking it out now. Intelligence creates chaos. Intelligence doesn't create chaos. More like irrationality creates chaos. Or a low level of intelligence creates chaos. And mind you, I'm adding myself into this. This is not me being separate and distinct. I'm just saying. I don't think it's intelligence as an absolute creates chaos. I think it's childish intelligence. I just learned that during sleep, metabolic waste is squeezed out of your brain into your spinal fluid. Oh, that's kind of gross. That's kind of gross. Oh, Daddy Nap. Bin Laden wanted Saudi to invade Iraq with Mujahideen, but al-Saudi wanted the United States military to do it. Wow, I did not know that. I want to see you cringe, Jamal, watching Bernie make it. Oh, God. You're trying to torture me. Kinseth. K. Finseth. I want to see you cringe, Jamal, watching Bernie make an ass of himself with that BS he's talking now. It wouldn't be fucking surprised by now if he came on the Senate floor with that fucking PP dossier. Oh, don't do that. Nah, man. Oh, man. You don't want to see me looking like an asshole watching that video. I feel miserable. I hate that he's pushing that shit. I understand that you got to swim with the current sometimes, but god damn it, man. I don't think he... Look, from a political standpoint, I get it. I get it. You don't want to push against the current. Oh, Bernie Sanders, conspiracy theorist. Hey, I'm here to talk about Medicare. Who wants to hear about Medicare from a conspiracy theorist? Do you really believe Russia didn't have anything to do with it, Bernie Sanders? I'm trying to talk about healthcare. Yeah. We can get to healthcare, but do you really believe that Russia didn't have anything to do with it? I mean, all of our intelligence services say so. I mean, all of these Democrats believe it. I mean, why are you the only one that don't believe in Bernie Sanders? Why are you the only one? He would never get a word in edgewise. Never. And every interview, I guarantee you, would start with, is it true you still don't believe that Russia had anything to do with it? I guarantee you they would hit him in every fucking interview would start with that question. Why is it that you don't believe? In fact, the first few minutes of every interview would start with him not believing what they're saying about Russia. I shit you not. Now, if you want to start a political revolution, that's not the way to start it. For at least it's not the easiest way. This is not a defense of Sanders doing it. It's more so just an explanation of it. I don't particularly like it. But by the same token, I'm not in the same boat that Sanders is in. So I'm trying to have a elegant dodge. Trying to have an elegant dodge. All right, let's see. Tom DeLonge is supposed to be releasing something. All right. I'll find it. Whenever it comes out, I'll find it. It seems like Hal Puthoff is going to appear before the public. Yeah, it seems like they're putting these guys out in front of the public. Hal Puthoff is a fucking fascinating guy. He does this stuff with consciousness research, and it's fascinating. He was one of those guys that was working with Indigo Swan back in the early days of the remote viewing project, and he would put Indigo Swan in like a vault, like underground and whatnot. They were testing the limits of the ability to see if they could shut it off. Because there were some aspects of the military that was freaked out by them not being able to shut it off. Ingo was amazing. But if I'm not mistaken, Hal Puthoff was a guy that was doing some of the research in regards to the program to get it started. So Hal is phenomenal from the standpoint of what he knows. But I haven't seen... I don't know if DeLonge is a phony, man. I think DeLonge is... It depends on what you mean by phony. I've seen DeLonge enough to know that DeLonge believed what he's saying. Now, you can say you disbelieve him, but saying he's a phony is not really fair. But he believes it. He's a true believer. He's a true believer. Again, whether you believe him or not is a second story. Occupy new paradigm. I don't know why I keep calling. I used to call paradigm peridium for like 20 years. For whatever reason, I could not get that word correct. Paradigm. The government lied about marijuana and LSD. What else did the government lie about? This is what I learned from doing drugs. I love that. I love that. I love that. Jamal Winkle did a super chat. Read it. Did he? Oh, I'm sorry, Winkle. I didn't see it. Last super miss there, buddy. It happens. Oh, Winkle, I'm sorry. Smug. Definition. Super delegates planning a revolt against the power being taken away somewhat. I love that. That's the definition of smug. How dare you take our ability to have, 40,000 votes equaling one person. How dare you, sir. I compare it to like the slaves. Like, where, Winkle the Bernie Bro. So Winkle has a channel, by the way, guys. So definitely check Winkle out. He's the guy who does the voices. The Tom Perez and I don't know if he's done a Tom Perez yet. But definitely he's done Michael Brooks. Michael Brooks is fucking hilarious. So yeah, this has been awesome. And Tom Perez, yeah, Tom Perez running. that scene tripped me out because this scene, Tom Perez was supposedly on. Look, when I talk about this stuff, I usually have the stuff in my head. Like it happens, and it doesn't happen so much in words. It happens in these fully fleshed out dramas, like these instantaneous dramas that takes place when I'm thinking of something. But it was this thing of Tom Perez coming from the march, and I don't know how much Tom Perez was marching, but I had in my head that Tom Perez was like overly marching, like he was being over dramatic and trying to sell how much he's been marching. So he's just completely out of breath. He's just plastered, and the entire thing he's like making this allusion to how hard he was walking. He was walking harder than everybody else. And he was putting his values out there that was helping him to stay along. He's been walking like 30 miles for the cause. Oh man, it's fucking hilarious. Absolutely hilarious, Winky. Jamal didn't catch the Bernie speech where Bernie channeled Rachel Maddow. Oh God, you guys are gonna hurt me with this, aren't you? You guys are gonna. Oh, you're gonna hurt me with this. Winkle's channel is too funny. Yeah, his channel is fucking hilarious. I read his super chats. I read it. Oh, you guys are live now. Yeah. I read his super chats. Stephen Call. I grew up on clean LSD and coast to coast. Oh man, Art Bell. I had my suspicions about the government fairly fucking early. Oh, Jesus Christ. Art Bell. I used to love Art Bell. When I used to get it. How can I say this? Again, these fully fleshed out stories. So there's something comforting about a consistent voice, even when it's a maniac. Or even when it's a lunatic. Like, think about your newsman. Like, let's say you go back to the 60s for the moment. And each night, your newsman will come onto the show. And he's clear, impartial, calm, objective. It's almost as if it's the voice of God. And you can believe what he's telling you because he's spiffied up. He's attractive. Maybe a little aged. And he's just giving it to you straight. He's giving you the news. This is the shit that you need to know to get you to point A to point B. Now, there's something comforting in that level of consistency where it's the same guy over and over and over again. It's something extremely comforting about it. Now, I say that to say it's something similar for the Art Bell thing. If it's something where you're catching him all the time, it's the same guy doing what he's doing. He's talking about some wild and out there shit, but he has this constant, steady voice that regardless of what the guy says, he's uncritical while at the same time not necessarily, how can I say it, committed. It's this fine line that Art Bell would play when he would do his thing. It's, I'm not all in what you're telling me, but tell me more. It's an awesome way of doing it. And they would be talking about some wild and out there shit. I remember one guy called Art Bell one day. He told him, he said he was a time traveler. And Art Bell said, are you now? And the guy starts telling him stuff of what was taking place in like the 23rd century. It was just some amazing shit that Art Bell was being told. If I'm not mistaken, but it was from somewhere else. And Art Bell is like listening to the guy and just asking the guy questions and you know, anybody else would be like, what the fuck is taking place here? And Art Bell is talking to this guy like it's the most normal and natural thing in the world. It's amazing. Art Bell is hilarious. Wicked Guru. I think it's in Bernie's best interest to embrace the Russia stuff as much as it sucks. Same thing with the dodging and third party stuff. Oh, I agree. That's my point. I agree. I don't, like I said, he's like, what do you do? How do you deal with that? if you push against the current, Jill Stein pushed against the current because Jill Stein had nothing to lose. Jill Stein wasn't going to be president of the United States. Jill Stein had no chance of being president of the United States. So it's not a situation of, I'm going to accept that I have been a Russian plant. Nobody is going to accept that, including Donald Trump. The fact is, the politics of this, to some degree, in part, there is strength to the politics. If you're looking for a way to somewhat constrain Trump's ability for action, this does it. This does it. From a raw, bare bones political standpoint of how do we paralyze an administration, this does it. This does it. So yeah, but fuck, man. Everybody loves Obama here. I don't know if that's true. In fact, I'm pretty severe that's true. Jamal, review the show you make. The sound in the video clips you play during your show is way too low. It's been going on for months. You should adjust the volume. I do. Sometimes the videos they're not something I control. The audio that's on the audio. So if I have, let's say for example, if I'm playing a clip and that clip's audio is already low, then there's nothing I can do to essentially pump that volume up with that particular clip because I'm stuck with the volume of the clip. I can only lower it or, or make it high as it can be. Winkle the Bernie bro. Too bad the Russia shit will still blow back on Bernie. They red baited him in 2015. Now Ted Devine being connected to Manafort with all this hysteria stuff. Winkle, I don't think you're wrong on this. Because think of Bernie Sanders running and then they say Bernie Sanders was helped by the Russians. Bernie Sanders said himself he was helped by the Russians. Now, how is that an attack? That's a stupid attack. But it's still an attack. Still an attack. It's an attack in the same way that a sexy woman holding a Pepsi can or Pepsi sells Pepsi. In this case, it's just the opposite. In this case, it's Bernie Sanders standing beside Russia. It's almost like a guilt by association in the same way that the Pepsi or the woman transfers her beauty so you can remember the connection between the two. Yeah, he's going to get hit by it regardless. I don't know what's going to happen in 2016. I have this feeling that big fucking things can happen or miserable fucking things can happen. And I suppose that sounds ridiculous because that can happen on pretty much any day. But I think there's a potential for epicness. I just do. I know you guys disagree with me on it, but I do think it's true. I do think it's true. Ding, ding, ding. Finally, Jamal sees the light from Bernie's BS strategy. Look, I don't think I was ever in the dark about why Bernie Sanders was doing it. It doesn't make me like that he's doing it. There's a difference in those things. Bernie chose life. Albert Dune Patel, Bernie chose life. I don't know what that means. Wicked Guru, not so sure about that. I think Bernie lost about 10 million votes yesterday, me included. He's got a lot of splaining to do. Oh yeah, there are a lot of lefties that are not going to like that speech. There are a lot of lefties. Yeah. Alright guys, I'm going to end this. I've been driving for the last 4 hours. I've done a radio show today that went extremely well. I got more stoned than I think I've been in a very long time. I've had an epiphany while I was driving. My epiphany while I was driving was, it's probably a bad idea to drive to Washington, D.C. and have to drive back after going to somewhere and getting just your mind blown with the stuff that you've been smoking. I had to wait. I had to wait on the side, and I remember thinking to myself as I was sitting there, I was sitting on the side of the street, and this guy pulled behind me, and I was like, oh fuck, it's the goddamn cops. Now, mind you, this is just some random guy pulling behind me on the side of the street. I'm sitting on the side of the road, and I'm like, oh shit, this is not gonna go well. Oh god, I'm a good person. I'm not a horrible person. I started thinking of all this shit in the moment. Now, this is just some bloke who's sitting beside me. For whatever reason, he's sitting behind me. He's not doing anything other than, minding his own business. It's like all this shit goes through your mind at once. It's much love, get some rest. Oh, thank you. I gotta be honest though. I have like 4 shows from driving that I was thinking about that I wanted to do, including that video from Theresa May. Oh man, there's a video of Theresa May being eaten alive by Theresa May because she couldn't explain something that I couldn't explain. I'm not gonna go fully into it, but Theresa May, comes up with the maximum facilitation and all this other stuff, and the tariff plan where they're gonna collect tariffs in this kind of weird contraption in order to prevent a hard border being between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Great. I couldn't in my head figure out how that worked. Now, I'm a software engineer, so part of my job used to be systems. Like, ultimately, I would have to go into one company or another company and figure out how they set their system up. Because if they wanted to build something else, or if they wanted to build a new system or add on to the system, I would have to understand how that current system worked in order to come up with some kind of plan or idea in order to either expand or update. That was when I was good at it. When I was at my best at it. That was when I actually liked it. Now, but either way, part of the job itself was looking at the stuff and figuring out how this stuff works together. I say that to say that I'm not necessarily stupid on this stuff. I tend to be pretty good at putting these things together. And I could not, in my head, figure out how Theresa May's tariff thing was going to work. And I was like, maybe my brain just doesn't work from the standpoint of the political space. Now, here's the catch. I didn't feel so bad when I saw Theresa May sitting before the council as a committee dealing with Brexit. And they asked her point blank, how is your tariff plan going to work? And Theresa May sat there for a good 5 minutes without being able to explain how the tariff plan is going to work. It's a remarkable fucking thing to see. I listened to one of the British hosts. I can't think of his name. Was it Osborne? It might be Osborne. I can't think of his name. But he made this point. There's no plan. Like, be afraid. There's no plan. There's no man behind the mirror. There's nothing behind the scenes where it's like, this is plan B, or we're going to get to the last minute and we're going to do this. Or these guys have it worked out and everything is okay and they just have it down to the letter and they're just playing politics. But at the end of the day, we're going to be sick. No. There is no plan. The checkers plan is a plan, and that plan is dead on arrival. There is no plan. Meaning, it is possible that Britain is going to be ejected out of the EU at the rate of a bullet out of a gun, without any particular parachute, any particular jetpack, any particular escape hatch, any particular anything. Fully ballistic. Be afraid. Now, I am not somebody who's necessarily against or for Brexit. I was agnostic towards Brexit. I think I still, to some degree, am. That being said, and I will even make an argument, being agnostic towards it, to some degree, helped me see some of the flaws in this a little bit better. And it just seems like it's a worse deal. I would imagine that the people in Britain are going to say, why are we leaving if this is what you're going to get? It's a worse deal. And then there's this also weird thing, like, how do Americans see themselves from the standpoint of American exceptionalism? Remember, Britain used to also. I find this comparison amazing. If you remember, Britain was masters of the universe. Britain had more territory than any other country in the world. I mean, after World War I, their territory was expansive. I mean, they had so much territory. At that point, they were a British empire, but Jesus Christ. Masters of the universe. The white man's burden. Oh, god damn. These fucking darkies. We got to keep helping them and going to their country and making them work and taking their resources and shit, man. They're not even happy that we're doing it. Do they understand the burden that we need to take coming over here, expropriating resources from you? Shit, man. If it wasn't for us, you would be crawling on all fours. We are helping you. We're organizing you. And we're making you into better people. It is our burden. We're not complaining about it. It is just our burden. The white man's burden. To the point of where they are now. Look at what they've become. Look at Parliament. Look at the clusterfuck that's taking place. Look at Theresa May's government that's disintegrating in broad daylight. It's like the sun is hitting it and people are falling away. She's losing her parts. I mean, shit, it's amazing. Utterly horrifying. Because at the end of the day, they're real people that are going to be injured and hurt by the failure and falling apart of that government. I'm just saying the disparity between those things. And what you as a Brit, your self-image in this, compared to the self-image when you were masters of the universe. Like, I'm amazed with that dichotomy, because at some point, Americans are going to have to also resolve that shit of the exceptionalism was something that you were telling yourself, and that was not necessarily true in any real sense of the word. In the same way Britain is going to have to. Or had to. It's fascinating. That's all. It is fascinating. Banks are people too. That's funny. Rich people are the poor people's burden. Yes, they are. Ryan for Press. God, I love that one. Jamal is dividing class by spewing his race crap again. Clyde illusion. No. Clyde, here's the thing. Every time talking about race is not good or bad. It's not. A lot of it has to do with what you say about race. I'll give you that. And a lot of it has to do with whether or not race is being used as a division point, or whether you're talking about something that's actually just true, especially within the context of a historical context. I mean, shit, history never stopped. So, yeah. History never stopped. In fact, having to talk about, or not talking about race is to some degree dishonest. It's completely dishonest. What's the blue spirit mask behind Jamal? There's no blue spirit mask behind. Oh. That's not a blue spirit mask. That's a little blue alien saying, take me to your leader. Take me to your leader. Lithuania. Are we going to go to war for Lithuania? Alright, guys. I'm going to end this. I really want to do more shows. I have like 3 that I want to do. So I may and I really want to do the Theresa May thing. Alright, I'm gonna end this. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you guys can always support through Patreon. Thanks, guys. This is man, this has gone all way off the rails. This started off as talking about going to a party, and being stoned off my ass, and how that could be in America. It could be in America. It could be a reality. You could get up in the morning, go to work, come home, and before you go home, you make a stop, and you get some grape ape, and you smell it. You say, you're like, oh my God, that stuff smells so strong. And they say, yeah, we just got it out of the hydroponic bay. We just bought it here. You're the first customer to get it. And hey, since you're the first customer, and we're good capitalists, we're going to also give you a little taster of Gorilla Jones. And they're not being racist. There's not a black person on the cover. It's just a real gorilla. And his name is Jones. And you tell them thank you. And they say, hey, would you like to take a hit of it just before you leave, just to see how it is? And you say, fuck it, yeah, let's do it. And you're wasted. But you're happy. You're like, wow, this is an awesome fucking day. Now, the catch here is hopefully you have your wife with you so she can drive you home. Don't die going home from a pot thing. A, it looks bad for the pot thing. This is the first point. That's the most important thing. And B, people are going to be pissed off at you if that happens. But look, that could be a reality, man. That's all. Or for that matter, just don't smoke until you get home. Wait till you get home. And then you go through your ritual. You know the ritual. I don't think I'm the only one with the ritual. You get home and you take your pipe and you clean your pipe. You clean it. wash it, swish it. You use the chemical to get all the stuff out of it. You load it. Rip a little piece off. It's a bud. It's full bud. There's like crystals and everything else on it. You're like, yeah, that's awesome. And you blaze out. You're enjoying your day. Not minding your own business. You're in your own little world. Maybe the music's playing. Maybe you're jamming out. Maybe you're playing chess online. Maybe you're playing some video game. You're in your own little world. And with a hellish, difficult life, you found some level of solitude. Hey, by this token though, there would be a brutish cop that could take you to prison because of you minding your own business. That's pretty fucked up. We're putting people in cages for all intents and purposes minding their own business. So, just saying. Just saying. Nobody had shrooms. One of the they did have these it was like a gelatin pot thing, and the woman was like, she's like, look, she's like, one, if you just kind of want to chill out. Two, if you want to have a nice buzz. Three, at that point you can understand what three is going to be. I told her, I said, I've had experience, I know people who made these, and it would either be not enough or too much. Like, I don't really feel anything to, oh my God, this is crippling. You know what I mean? Like, just crippling, crippling disorientation or crippling disorientation. I'm going to go with that one. Crippling disorientation. Just punishing for hours where you're like, oh God, this, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. Maybe Jeff Sessions has a point. And then you're like, fuck, that was fucked up. Maybe I need less. I just need to do less. Maybe I need to just put less in. Never can get it right. So, it's one of those things of somebody who knows what they're doing. It's a little bit better. God damn it, man. I have like 2 stories that were ate too much. Ate too much. Because look, when you smoke it, you get to the point where you just say, okay, I'm done. I had enough. However strong the pot is, it doesn't really matter. You just use less. Nobody is... That was always the stupidest argument to me. They were like, the pot today is super duper strong. It's 1 billion times stronger than what it was when they were little. Literally 1 billion times. Or maybe more. Now, the catch is, if it is 1 billion times stronger, the person is not going to smoke the exact same amount that they were going to smoke in the past. They're just going to break off and smoke to the degree that they need to get high. I don't understand why they believe that they're going to force themselves to get higher than they need to get. It's just a bizarre argument. So one at a time. I'll give one at a time. We bake cookies. We bake some cookies, and I remember we haven't done this in years, but this was when my wife and I think we were together maybe 2 years, and we went through this phase of like, well, let's try it. Let's just try it. Let's see how it goes. And we baked some cookies, and I have a high tolerance for pretty much everything. My wife, just from the time I was in a hospital when I was younger, I used to so mega doses of narcotics because I used to be in pain based upon what was taking place. It was like many surgeries. And so my tolerance for stuff is out of whack. It's weird. It's I don't react to medication, to pain meds, so I don't have a high tolerance. Let's just say it that way. And so I tend to be over potentially smug with in regards to what I can tolerate. And my wife, not so much. She's less smug on this. She's more reasonable with regards to what she's willing to try. And she like, I think she had like a crumb or something. Like, she didn't have much at all. And I'm on the way. I'm going to a doctor's visit. And she tells me, she calls maybe like 15 minutes in. And she says, babe, be careful with those cookies. she's like, I am sitting here and she's like, I'm feeling something, and just be careful with those cookies. Now, by this time, I had already had 1.5. So the whole be careful with those clickers was kind of out the window. And I think within 30 minutes, I'm feeling something which tells me, oh my God, this is going to be bad. Like, usually it takes like an hour for the stuff to kick in. If I'm feeling effects early, then that means that it's sufficient enough strength to make me feel those effects early. And at that point, you're apprehensive because you're like, oh God, what's coming? There's nothing you can do. You face the monster. You take your knives out and you just stand there like in Predator. Do you remember Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger? The first one where there's a Native American cat. This is so racist. There's a Native American cat. And he's like, he goes out to fight the Predator. Like he finds an ally, like a warrior. And he's like, you know, because Native Americans are warriors, of course. And he sees within this beast, even though he don't know what this beast is, a fellow warrior. And whether he's having a psychological breakdown at this moment because the people around him are being killed, or whether he's just that much of a badass, I don't necessarily know which one it is. But he goes out, shirt off. I think he puts his knife in his teeth. I'm not sure. I could be being dramatic. But he's like just waiting for this monster. That's kind of how it is. You wait for the monster. Now, he gets mangled, of course. Like you hear him screaming later. Like, ah! It's like, I thought he was a fucking Native American. That doesn't sound Native American at all. It sounds like a man getting broken. So yeah, you wait for the monster. Knowing that the monster is coming, there's nothing you can do about it. I'm at the doctor's appointment, and I'm sitting in the chair, and I throw up. Like, I literally, like, I can't move. Like, it's one of those things. It's a body high that I've never experienced before in my life, where I'm literally just like, I can't move. I can't lift my arms. And I told the nurse, I said, look, I had a cookie. Just know that. Just know I had a cookie. She says, what do you mean? I said, look, there might have been something in that cookie. I'm just saying. And she says, okay. And I said, I can't move. And she says, yeah, you've thrown up on yourself. I said, I'm aware of that, but I can't move. You understand? I can't move. I can't move my arms. I can't move my body. I would like to get up to go to the bathroom, but I can't. I'm lucid, by the way. I'm perfectly lucid. I just can't do anything about it. And that to some degree makes it even worse. If I was, you know, driven to some fit of mania, at the very least, I would be blissfully unaware of what was taking place, this ignoble moment. And the nurse is nice enough. She says, look, we have another shirt that we can give you. In which case, I'm sitting there with vomit on my pants and this kind of ridiculous shirt. It's so fucking embarrassing. Like, I gotta be honest, that is one of the most embarrassing moments. It's so fucking embarrassing. You look pretty stoned tonight. Are you still doing your pretty crack blow and heroin to the parties? Oh, fuck, no. I'm at this point, I'm sober. It's just, I've been up all day. I'm stone sober at this point. That was hours ago. It was like 6 o'clock. So it's been a while. Not to mention, I've been on the road for like 3 hours. I mean, traffic in DC during rush hour in and of itself is bad enough. And it looks like it doesn't go down. It's just there forever. I don't know what these people be doing there. Hillary is my crack. CB. Is she now? Is she now? Went to Disneyland the first time on bladder acid. Oh, God. That had to be... that had to be an amazing experience. God, that had to be a bizarre experience. I've never done hallucinogens. I've never done real hallucinogens. Let's say it that way. Any with real impact. I've done sativa didorium, and some of you are like, what? It looks like pot, but it's not pot. It's its own thing. It's called sativa didorium. It's a hallucinogenic, but its effects only last for a very short period of time, so it's only a short window of operation. So it's not like you're on it for like an hour, even though you may think like 30 minutes has passed. It's probably like 2 minutes. It was, again, like I said, I inch my way into experiences. I don't like to just jump into an experience. No, but in this one, it was weird. It was, I'm sitting on the bed. I have a wooden chessboard on the bed. I take a hit, and I'm waiting. You know what I mean? It's like you're like, all right, I'm trying to like process if anything in me is changing, and if it is, can I monitor the shift? Meaning, can I be consciously and cognitively aware of what's taking place if I'm shifting into some kind of whatever I'm shifting into? Meaning, if I'm going to see a monster or some alien in my room, can I at the very least try to sense the change in state that gets me to that point, if that makes sense? I noticed that reality had a beat. Look, it was pulsating. Now, I assume that was just my beating heart being overly focused on, where I lose track of the fact that the heart is coming from me and it's being externalized in this weird way. So it feels like outside of me is beating like a pulse. It's so bizarre. And it also felt like the chessboard was connected to my leg. So it wasn't just one, like the chessboard and me. It was me and the chessboard being in some weird union. It was so bizarre. It didn't last anything for maybe 2 minutes, but it was a bizarre 2 minutes. Valium is good for saying linear psychedelics. That's hilarious. Truth is marching, expanding electrons, frequency. I think it's my heartbeat. I think it was just my heartbeat. I think it's like, you know, sometimes with part you're over focusing on your heartbeat, and you can, you know, you hear it almost to the exclusion of anything else in a way that you don't necessarily pay attention to before. Well, what happens if you're on a psychedelic and that heartbeat is still being heard and manifested, but it's being heard in almost like a third-person perspective, and that third-person perspective is giving you this kind of, it's almost like if you were projecting your heartbeat external to yourself, if that makes sense. Like you're witnessing your heartbeat. It was almost like you're witnessing from a different perspective. So bizarre, so bizarre. I'm getting into permaculture, herbalism, holistic healing, and yoga, all psychedelics. I think that's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. I got a certificate in herbal medicine. When I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So the first degree I got was a degree in holistic nutrition. And then when I thought I was going to go into holistic medicine, I started taking up herbal classes. I used to, for the most part, be able to know what most of the stuff on the shelf was and know some of the combinations that help. I went through the first certificate for Dr. Christopher's herbal whatever. And then I got cynical. Because I started, there were times where I was with the person who was training me, and she would say stuff that was so off the wall, and I thought, oh my God, is this what they're selling? Now, this is not indicative of all, but there was some stuff called like super water, and I was like, what? Super water? Like, what the fuck is super water? And it was like H3O or something. I was like, that can't be H3O. That's not water. That's something else. And then somebody said they had a cream that pulled cancer out of their skin, and I'm like, oh God, are you serious? Do you have a picture of it? I want to see a picture. I mean, as gross as it may sound, I want to see a picture. I want to see the cancer being pulled out of the skin with the cream. It just became this thing of or they would say testimony. And I remember one day she was like, hey, you should testify about your kidney stuff. And this was during the time where it was severe. And I'm like, but nothing's happened. And she's like, well, I mean, you can still get testimony. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, and at that point I was like, all right, this woman is a hack. That's what I thought. This woman is a hack. Which means I'm sitting in class thinking this woman is an utter quack. She's a complete kook. And it made me very cynical of the process. So, yeah. Testify the nothingness. Right, testify the nothingness. That's exactly what it is, Blogo. Blogo Pogo. Testify the nothingness. Alright, I'm going to end this. And I keep saying I'm going to end this, and I never end this. So, you guys, I thank you very much. And I'll see you, if not tomorrow, I'll see you I gotta be honest, prompt tonight. I really want to do 2 of these. I may run through them and I may not necessarily stay for long like I did this one, but yeah, I may wait till morning. I'll do it in the morning. Alright guys, y'all have a good night.